There's a river that has whispered for thousands of years, a secret that can end your stress in 3 simple steps. But before you think this is just another empty promise, let me tell you what happened to Sarah, a 42-year-old executive who worked 16-hour days, drank 3 cups of coffee before lunch, and woke up every morning with her heart racing, thinking about deadlines that seemed impossible to meet. Sarah tried everything: meditation apps, therapy, even a forced vacation that only increased her anxiety because she knew the demands would be waiting when she returned. Until the day she discovered what Taoist sages call Wu Wei, the art of non-effort. Within 3 weeks, she was sleeping 8 hours a night. Her decisions flowed with natural clarity, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was fighting her own life. What Sarah learned comes from an ancient tradition that understands something our modern culture has completely forgotten. Stress doesn't come from the outside world, but from the friction we create internally when we try to control the uncontrollable. Today, I'll share with you the exact 3 steps that transformed not only Sarah's life, but the lives of thousands of people who discovered the Taoist secret of effortless action. Welcome to Axiom Sage, where the timeless wisdom of the East meets your modern life to transform your mind and spirit. I am your narrator on this journey, a simple student of the ancient masters, and today we will walk together through the teachings of Lao Tzu, the sage who taught us that water, being gentle and flexible, can overcome the hardest stone. If you're tired of fighting the current of life, if you feel like you're always swimming against the tide, then the next 30 minutes could completely change your relationship with stress. But here's the first paradox. To end stress, you need to stop trying to end stress. And in the next few minutes, you'll understand exactly what that means and how to apply this ancient wisdom to your modern reality. Whether you're an overwhelmed executive, an exhausted mother, a pressured student, or anyone who feels like life has become a constant battle against time and circumstances. Have you ever stopped to observe your thoughts in the early hours of the morning? I bet they sound something like this. I need to finish that report. I can't be late for the meeting. Did I send that important email? My schedule is impossible today. How will I get it all done? And before you even get out of bed, your nervous system is already in survival mode, pumping cortisol as if you're about to flee a wild predator. The problem is that our ancestral brains can't distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and a tight deadline. The biological response is identical. Tense muscles, shallow breathing, racing mind, pounding heart. You live in a constant state of alert, like a soldier in a never-ending war. And the tragedy is that this war exists only in your mind. Lao Tzu observed this over 2,000 years ago when he wrote, "If you understand others, you are intelligent. If you understand yourself, you are wise." He realized that our greatest source of suffering comes from our own resistance to the natural flow of life. We create friction where there should be fluidity, tension where there should be relaxation, struggle where there should be dance. But here's what will surprise you. There's a completely different way of living, where tasks come naturally, where decisions emerge with crystal clarity, where you act with maximum efficiency using minimum effort. The Taoists call this Wu Wei, and it's literally the opposite of everything our culture has taught us about productivity and success. Now, before we continue, I want you to do something with me. Take 3 deep breaths and tell me in the comments. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your average stress level during the week? And more importantly, how long have you been in this state? Because if you're like most modern people, you probably don't even remember what it's like to feel truly relaxed and present. The inconvenient truth is that we've built a society based on the belief that more effort always yields more results. We work longer hours, drink more coffee, and accelerate our pace, as if life were a machine that responds only to brute force. But the Taoist sages discovered something revolutionary. The best results come not from maximum effort, but from intelligent effort. Not from constant tension, but from adaptive flexibility. And here's a question that could change everything. What if the stress you feel isn't caused by your responsibilities, but by how you relate to them? What if there's a way to maintain your full productivity, fulfill all your commitments, but feel like the water Lao Tzu so admired, flowing naturally around obstacles? always finding the most efficient path, unhurriedly but also without pause. Let me introduce you to two characters who represent two completely opposite philosophies about how to navigate modern life. The first is Marco, a 38-year-old businessman who religiously believes in the more is more philosophy. He wakes up at 5 a.m., checks emails before brushing his teeth, showers while thinking about the first meeting of the day, eats a protein snack while driving, and listens to productivity podcasts while commuting. Marco has 4 organization apps on his phone, 3 different planners for different types of commitments, and his desk is always covered in colorful post-it notes with urgent reminders. He sleeps an average of 5 hours a night because sleep is for wimps, and considers stress a sign that he's truly living life. His motto is, "If you're not stressed, you're not growing." The result? Marco has an ulcer, takes medication for anxiety, has fought with his wife 3 times in the last week, and can't remember the last time he genuinely laughed. But he keeps at it because our culture rewards him. He earns well, has social status, and everyone comments on his impressive dedication. Marco represents what we call effort addiction, the belief that personal worth is measured by how much stress you can endure. Now, meet Elena, a 35-year-old architect who discovered Taoist principles 2 years ago. Elena also has enormous responsibilities. She manages a team of 12, cares for her elderly mother, has 2 young children, and is finishing her master's degree. But she's learned something Marco doesn't yet understand. Efficiency doesn't equal stress. Elena starts her day with 5 minutes of mindful breathing, not formal meditation, just observing her own natural rhythm. When she looks at her schedule, she doesn't feel the crushing weight of impossible commitments, but sees a flow of activities that can be navigated like a river. When an unexpected problem arises, she doesn't panic. She stops, breathes, and asks, "What is the most natural action here? How does water flow around this obstacle?" The fundamental difference is that Elena stopped fighting reality and started dancing with it. When there's a lot of work, she prioritizes naturally. When things get complicated, she adapts fluidly. When there's conflict, she responds rather than reacts. And most fascinatingly, Elena is more productive than Marco, makes fewer mistakes, has healthier relationships, and sleeps 8 hours a night. What Elena discovered is that there's a world of difference between action and reaction. Marco is constantly reacting to external demands, deadlines, social pressures, and his own internal fears. He's always chasing, always trying to regain control, always feeling like he's one step behind life. Elena, on the other hand, has learned to act from the center, from calm, from clarity. Lao Tzu taught that, in his stillness, the wise man is not inactive. In his activity, he is not anxious. This doesn't mean being passive or lazy. It means finding the balance where action arises naturally, without unnecessary friction, without the emotional exhaustion that comes from trying to force results. But here's the paradox that confuses most people. To achieve maximum efficiency, you need to let go of the need to control every detail of the process. To have more energy, you need to stop wasting energy fighting what already is. To find more time, you need to stop racing against time. Do this quick exercise with me. For 30 seconds, try not to think about a pink elephant. Timer starting. Now, what happened? Exactly. The more you tried to control your mind, the more it resisted. The more effort you put in, the less results you got. This is exactly the dynamic that creates most modern stress. Trying to control the uncontrollable creates internal friction that exhausts us before we even start our day. Now we come to the first practical step toward ending stress through Taoist wisdom. And I can guarantee it will challenge everything you've learned about productivity and emotional control. The first step is learning to identify and turn off what I call the overexertion engine, that internal mechanism that makes us apply brute force in situations that require delicacy and intelligence. Step 1. Recognize the invisible enemy. Chronic stress doesn't come from your responsibilities. It comes from your relationship with those responsibilities. More specifically, it arises when you unconsciously decide you need to control not only your actions, but also the results of those actions, other people's reactions, the timing of events, and even your own emotional responses to all of this. Imagine you're driving on a mountain road. You can choose two approaches. First, grip the steering wheel with full force, muscles tense, eyes fixed on the destination, pressing the accelerator hard on every curve, fighting every imperfection in the asphalt. Second, keep your hands relaxed but still on the wheel, your gaze taking in the entire landscape, your speed adapting naturally to the curves, and your movements flowing with the rhythm of the road. Which of the two would get you to your destination with less wear and tear, more safety, and even faster? The answer is obvious when it comes to driving, but curiously, we forget this same logic when it comes to directing our lives. Neuroscience confirms what Lao Tzu intuited millennia ago. A brain in a state of constant tension produces excess cortisol, diminishes decision-making ability, reduces creativity, and literally ages the body more quickly. How to identify when you are in overexertion mode? Observe your muscles during simple activities. When you're typing an email, are your shoulders tense? When you're walking, is your jaw clenched? When you're listening to someone speak, are you truly present, or are you already mentally preparing your response? These are signs that you're applying far more energy than necessary to the task at hand. Lao Tzu said, "Nothing in the world is softer than water, but nothing is better at overcoming the hard and strong." Water doesn't fight against stone. It finds its natural way around, under, and over. In time, water always wins, not through force, but through intelligent persistence and constant adaptability. Immediate practical exercise. 4-5 minutes. Choose an activity you do every day. It could be washing dishes, walking to your car, or even just mindful breathing. During these 5 minutes, practice what Taoists call minimum necessary action. Use only the muscular strength strictly necessary, only the appropriate mental attention, only the appropriate emotional energy. You'll discover something surprising. When you stop wasting energy fighting the activity, you have much more energy available to perform it with excellence. It's like the difference between swimming against the current and swimming with it. The direction may be the same, but the effort required is completely different. The modern productivity trap. Our culture has taught us that if something is important, we should approach it with maximum intensity. But this creates a terrible paradox. The more important we consider something, the more tension we apply, and the more tension we apply, the less efficient we become. It's like trying to thread a needle with shaking hands. Accuracy decreases proportionally to the intensity of the effort. If you've made it this far and are starting to question your own productivity strategies, subscribe to the channel, because now comes the part that will truly transform your relationship with stress. In the next few minutes, you'll understand why most relaxation techniques fail, and what the second Taoist step is that allows for efficient action without unnecessary tension. But before we continue, I want to leave a question echoing in your mind. If you could maintain all your responsibility and productivity, but eliminate 70% of the emotional tension you carry daily, what would your life be like? Keep that image alive as we explore the second ancient principle that can make this a reality. There's an ancient Taoist parable Zhuangzi told about a butcher named Ding, who served the king with such extraordinary skill it seemed magical. When Ding cut up a whole ox, his knife danced through the flesh and bone with movements so fluid they seemed like celestial choreography. There was no resistance, no visible effort, just a perfect dance between man, tool, and matter. The king, fascinated, asked how this was possible. Ding replied, "Your Majesty, I do not cut against bone or flesh. I find the natural spaces, the joints that already exist, and simply allow my knife to follow those paths. After 19 years of doing this, My blade is still as sharp as the first day because it never encounters unnecessary resistance. This story contains one of the most profound secrets to ending modern stress. Ding the Butcher represents what happens when you stop fighting the natural structure of reality and start working with it. He's not being passive. He's being extremely active, but his actions are aligned with a natural flow of things. The second step, the art of Wu Wei in modern life. Wu Wei is often translated as non-action, but this is a superficial understanding that has led many people to believe that Taoism preaches passivity. In reality, Wu Wei is action without internal resistance, movement without unnecessary friction, efficiency without anxiety. It's like the difference between forcing a rusty key into a lock and finding the exact angle at which it naturally turns. If you're still with me this far into the video, you're part of that select group of people who truly seek deep transformation, not just superficial relief. Most give up when they realize that true change requires questioning fundamental beliefs about effort and control. But you've made it this far, which means you're ready for the ultimate breakthrough. Here's the truth that can change everything. Stress isn't created by your external circumstances, but by the discrepancy between what's happening and what you think should be happening. It's the difference between what is and what I wish was that creates all the emotional friction you carry. How to apply Wu Wei at work. Imagine you have a project with a tight deadline. The traditional approach is to go into controlled panic mode, working late, constantly checking progress, worrying about every detail that could go wrong, trying to anticipate and control every variable. The result? You're exhausted before you even start the actual work. The Wu Wei approach is completely different. You realistically assess what needs to be done, identify the most natural sequence of actions, allocate energy only where it's truly needed, and trust the process. When obstacles arise, and they always do, you don't waste energy fighting them. You adapt fluidly, like water, finding new paths. The neuroscience of flow state. Modern science has discovered a specific neurological state where peak performance and well-being intersect. Neuroscientists call this the flow state, exactly what the Taoists called Wu Wei 2,000 years ago. In this state, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for constant self-criticism and excessive worry, decreases its activity, allowing you to act with intelligent spontaneity. When you are in Wu Wei, there is no separation between you and your actions. There is no part of you executing while another part judges, criticizes, worries, or tries to control the outcome. There is only pure action, emerging naturally from the present situation. Wu Wei exercise for stressful situations. The next time you feel overwhelmed, try this sequence. First, stop completely for 30 seconds. Not to think of solutions, but to simply observe what's happening in your body and mind without trying to change anything. Second, take 3 deep breaths, not as a relaxation technique, but as a way to reconnect with your body's natural rhythm. Third, ask yourself, if I were water encountering this obstacle, what would be the most natural path? This question is revolutionary because it completely shifts your perspective. Instead of asking, how can I force this situation to resolve itself? You ask, what's the smartest action that can naturally emerge from this circumstance? It's the difference between pushing a door marked "pull" and reading the sign before attempting to open it. The control paradox. Here's something that will turn your mind upside down. The more you try to control your anxious thoughts, the more anxious they become. The more you struggle to relax, the more tense you become. The more you fight stress, the more stressed you feel. This happens because the very effort to control them generates internal resistance. Lao Tzu observed this paradox and taught, "The wise man attempts nothing, therefore he fails. Grasps nothing, therefore he loses nothing." This doesn't mean being apathetic. It means figuring out how to act effectively without desperately clinging to results. It means doing your part with excellence, and then allowing the natural consequences to unfold. Now we come to the third and final step, which is where the rubber meets the road, where ancestral wisdom transforms into practical changes in your daily life. This step will resolve the paradox I left open: how you can be highly productive and responsible without carrying the emotional burden that typically accompanies such responsibility. Step 3. Align with the natural rhythm of life. Watch a bamboo plant during a storm. It doesn't try to resist the wind with rigidity. That would break it. Instead, it bends, adapts, dances with the force of nature, and when the storm passes, it naturally returns to its upright position, often stronger than before. Bamboo teaches us that flexibility is not weakness. It is the most intelligent form of strength. In modern life, we constantly face storms, unexpected deadlines, interpersonal conflicts, changes of plans, financial crises, health problems. Most people approach these situations with rigidity, trying to keep everything exactly as planned, resisting change, and fighting against what's happening. The result is emotional exhaustion and, often, worse results than they would have achieved with flexibility. How to create micro-rituals of alignment. Real transformation doesn't happen through dramatic changes, but through small, consistent adjustments that accumulate over time. I'll teach you 3 micro-rituals you can implement immediately to start living in Wu Wei. First micro-ritual: the conscious pause. Every 2 hours, stop for a minute and ask the Taoist question: am I flowing with this situation or fighting it? If you notice yourself applying unnecessary effort, take a deep breath and find a more natural approach. This trains your mind to recognize unnecessary tension before it builds up. Second micro-ritual: conscious movement. Choose a physical activity you do daily. It could be climbing stairs, walking to the bathroom, or even getting up from a chair. During this activity, practice moving with the grace of water, unhurriedly but without wasting time, without tension but with full presence. This trains your body to remember what it's like to move without internal resistance. Third micro-ritual: fluid decision. When faced with a difficult choice, instead of forcing a decision through overanalysis, ask this question: which option requires the least effort to maintain in the long run? Often, the most natural choice is also the wisest, but our culture has taught us to be wary of anything that seems too easy. The science behind adaptive flexibility. Neuroscientists have found that people with greater cognitive flexibility, the ability to mentally adapt to change, have significantly lower cortisol levels and greater overall life satisfaction. They are also more creative, make better decisions under pressure, and maintain healthier relationships. In other words, modern science has confirmed what Lao Tzu intuitively knew: flexibility is a superpower. How to turn obstacles into allies. Here's an insight that could completely transform your relationship with difficulties. What if obstacles weren't problems to be solved, but information to be processed? What if every difficulty was actually the universe showing you a more efficient way to achieve your goals? Dogen, the Zen master, taught that obstacles do not block the path, they are the path. This isn't mystical poetry, it's practical psychology. When you stop wasting energy resisting obstacles and start using them as feedback to adjust your approach, you become exponentially more effective. Immediate practical application. Choose a situation in your life that's causing you chronic stress. It could be a complicated relationship, a challenging project, a health condition, or anything you've been trying to solve for weeks or months. Now apply the 3 Taoist steps. First, identify where you're applying excessive effort. Where are you trying to control what can't be controlled? Second, find a Wu Wei approach. What would be the most natural and intelligent action if you stopped trying to force a specific outcome? Third, practice adaptive flexibility. How can you dance with this situation instead of fighting it? In the comments, Tell me which of these three approaches surprised you the most, and how you plan to apply them to your specific situation. And if you feel like something fundamental is shifting in your perspective on stress and productivity, hit the subscribe button, because in the next videos we'll explore how to apply these principles to relationships, career decisions, and even how you deal with your own difficult emotions. Now I'm going to solve the mystery I've been hanging on since the beginning. How Sarah, that exhausted executive, completely transformed her relationship with stress in just 3 weeks. And more importantly, I'll show you exactly how you can achieve the same transformation, starting today. Sarah discovered that her 16 years of formal education, her MBA specialization, and all her professional experience taught her everything about how to do, but nothing about how to be. She knew how to manage projects, but not how to manage her own energy. She mastered complex spreadsheets, but couldn't navigate the spreadsheet of her own emotions. The moment of revelation came when Sarah realized she was treating her own life like a faulty machine in need of repair, rather than a river in need of navigation. She was trying to function like a computer, inputting data, processing, outputting results, when in fact she was a living, organic system, responding better to intuition than brute force. The grand synthesis. The 3 integrated steps. When you integrate the 3 Taoist steps, something magical happens. First, you stop wasting 70% of your energy fighting reality. Second, your actions become more precise because they emerge from clarity, not anxiety. Third, you develop what I call adaptive intelligence, the ability to respond effectively to any situation without losing your inner center. First integrated step. Recognizing overexertion becomes automatic. You develop an internal radar that detects unnecessary tension before it builds up. It's like having an early warning system that tells you, hey, you're applying hammer force to a situation that requires paintbrush delicacy. Second integrated step. Wu Wei becomes your default setting. Instead of starting each situation by asking, how can I control this? You automatically ask, how can I flow intelligently with this? Your actions begin to emerge naturally from the circumstances, like perfectly calibrated responses. Third integrated step. Adaptive flexibility becomes your superpower. Unexpected changes cease to be crises and become opportunities to demonstrate your ability to dance with life. You become like the water Lao Tzu admired, always finding the most efficient path, regardless of obstacles. The final result. Sarah described the result to me this way. It's as if I'd spent 16 years driving with the handbrake on, not realizing why everything felt so hard. When I learned to let go of the brake, to stop internally resisting what was happening, I discovered I could reach the same destinations with half the effort and twice the enjoyment along the way. 3 months after the transformation, Sarah was sleeping 8 hours a night, had been promoted at work due to her new efficiency and clarity of thought. Her relationship with her husband was blossoming, and for the first time in years, she felt like she was living her life instead of surviving it. The promise fulfilled. Remember the promise I made at the beginning? To end stress in 3 steps using the Taoist secret of effortless action? Here's the whole truth. These 3 steps don't eliminate responsibilities from your life, nor do they magically make challenges disappear. What they do is far more powerful. They transform your fundamental relationship with everything that happens in your life. When you master these principles, you still have the same projects to deliver, the same bills to pay, the same relationships to navigate. But the quality of your experience changes radically. It's the difference between carrying a 50-kilo backpack on your back and using a backpack with perfect ergonomic distribution. The weight is the same, but your body doesn't suffer. The ultimate paradox revealed. The secret the river has whispered for thousands of years is this: true control comes from letting go of the need to control. True strength comes from embracing flexibility. True productivity comes from stopping fighting the natural flow of life and starting to dance with it. Let's return to that river from the beginning of our journey. Now you understand why it stopped fighting its own banks. It realized something profound. Its essential nature was not to resist the path, but to find the path. It was not to overcome obstacles through strength, but to circumvent them through wisdom. It was not to rush desperately toward the ocean, but to flow naturally, enjoying every curve, every landscape, every moment of the journey. Lao Tzu left us these words that echo through the millennia. The river that flows around the mountain is not being weak, it is being efficient. The water that yields to the container is not surrendering, it is adapting. The wise man who bends before the storm is not giving up. He is conserving his energy for when it truly matters. In the coming days, you'll have countless opportunities to practice these 3 steps. When your boss gives you an impossible deadline, remember, first, identify where you're applying unnecessary stress. Second, find the Wu Wei approach. What's the most natural and efficient action? Third, be flexible like bamboo. Adapt intelligently rather than resist rigidly. When your kids are trying your patience, when traffic is impossible, when technology won't cooperate, when your plans change at the last minute, remember that you have a fundamental choice. You can fight the river or learn to sail with it. Your first step today. Here's my challenge to you. Pick just one situation today. It could be something small like waiting in line at the grocery store, or something bigger like a difficult conversation you've been putting off, and apply the 3 Taoist principles. Notice how different you feel when you stop resisting internally and start flowing intelligently with the situation. Most people who watch this video will find it interesting, perhaps even inspiring, but they won't implement anything they learned. They'll fall back into old patterns of forcing, controlling, and emotionally draining themselves. But you have the opportunity to be the exception. You can be the person who truly transforms wisdom into practice, knowledge into lived experience. If this video touched you in any way, if you felt something shift in your perspective on stress and efficiency, 2 things. First, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because in the next videos we'll delve even deeper into the Taoist secrets for harmonious relationships, anxiety-free prosperity, and how to find your true purpose using the wisdom of Zhuangzi. Second, share this video with someone you know who is struggling with the current of life. Sometimes the greatest kindness is to show someone that there is a different way to live. In the comments, tell me, which of the 3 steps impacted you the most? Was it recognizing overexertion, discovering Wu Wei, or developing adaptive flexibility? And most importantly, what's a specific situation in your life where you'll apply these principles in the next 24 hours? I'm reminded of Lao Tzu's final words. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but the wise man knows that each step can be taken with the grace of water and the wisdom of wind. Your first step begins now. Your transformation is already underway. And I leave you with this thought for the next video. If you can completely transform your relationship with stress using principles that are over 2,000 years old, what else in your life can be transformed when you apply this same timeless wisdom? Until your next journey, may you flow like the river and adapt like bamboo.